It had been getting close to a year since I had fun playing Stalker, until back in April, I got the chance to play Dead Air prior to its release. To be frank, it's the most innovative Stalker mod that I've played. I never felt myself getting bored and always discovered something new throughout my adventures playing. So, I've decided that it would be the first part of a new series on my channel simply called Modlight, where I talk about mods I like and why. From the team that brought you Call of Misery comes another mod that's challenging, good looking, and with new features. If you want a full list of what they'd added, it's on their ModDB, but I'm going to be talking about my own experiences, what I noticed and appreciated the most while playing. The first thing that stands out is a perk system before you jump into the game. It's a pretty bare bones system and I like it that way. It won't massively impact your game, but you can tweak your character so that your run will have different pacing as well as different strengths and weaknesses. It makes you pick between starting off with better gear or picking traits that make your character a bit better. Having less weapon sway, receiving less irradiation for artifacts in your backpack, being able to intimidate people, or being able to craft unique items. They're things that help you decide your playstyle for that run without making the game too easy. And speaking of difficulty, while the mod is very challenging, I still feel that it's a balanced experience. Like Call of Chernobyl, you can also choose what kind of run you want. There's Iron Man mode and zombie survival available. Although Dead Air also allows you to increase mission rewards, loot, and condition of weapons dropped by enemies if you want a simpler experience. I played without any of these settings though, so I'll be talking from that standard experience. You start off in the cordon with not much at all, doing as many missions as you can to afford the necessities. Then, when you're stocked up on supplies, you can venture out further, to the swamp, to garbage, completing more missions, looting, and fighting. The game opens up when you want it to. I had played for around 10 hours before even going to bar, and I wasn't in a hurry either. But the main thing that affects the pacing, and in a good way, is that the high quality gear can only be acquired from two factions. Sure, I picked up assault rifles and sniper rifles from other stalkers, but their low condition makes them unreliable. I'm sure that will annoy some people, that every NPC's gun is low condition when they pick it up, but I feel it's necessary to not make the game too easy too quickly. So many other mods you can kill one enemy, then you have access to a reliable and powerful gun within the hour. But as mentioned before, you can make it that better conditioned guns drop before entering a game, so this is really a non-issue. In Dead Air, you can either repair that gun for a hefty sum, or put up with it jamming every 2 shots. The basic traders will only sell handguns, basic rifles, and shotguns. If you want a nice rifle and some better armor, you must go to either the military or mercenaries. In Dead Air, both factions start off hostile, but when you reach Rostock, you can purchase temporary permits which make you neutral with a respective faction, and then be able to trade with them and receive missions. I feel this is a wise decision for pacing, because in Call of Chernobyl you could blaze through the entire map in a few hours, constantly improving gear without much of a need for stopping. But in Dead Air, you first need to make it to the bar, and then need the money for the permit, then to make it to the military or mercenary base, and then require the money to buy something from them. Everything's more lethal in the mod, which I appreciate. You must be more careful, watch your step and not rush ahead blindly. You end up taking more time to get around, but succeeding is now much more rewarding. It sounds like a lot of busy work, but the main complaint I would always hear about free play mods is that it's just aimless wandering. While there's no new storyline for this mod, you have goals to achieve, work towards getting to Dead City to then pick up some more challenging missions to afford better gear. You can then work towards reaching the CNPP or exploring the X-Labs. Certain areas require heavy psi and radiation protection to access safely, while other areas, such as Yantar, require an oxygen tank due to toxic air covering the area. So I've talked about the basics of a mod. Essentially, it is shooting, looting, and missions like so many mods before it. But now I want to talk about the dozen other features which makes Dead Air my favourite Stalker mod. So when you actually get into the game, you will notice it looks good, but what you might not notice at first is you can change the colour and vibrance of the game without having to touch any files at all. In the graphics menu is a set of sliders which you can change on the fly. So you can go for a bright and lush look or something cold and dark. I've never seen this in a Stalker mod before, and it really refreshes the same old scenery. While you're here in the options, you might as well take more of a look around. There's a lot of options you can toggle off and on for the game. A lot of mods have these kind of choices, but Dead Air has them most definitely. You can change the UI a lot here, turn off all radio music, or make it that you can only save at campfires. just some quality of life choices that make your experience more pleasant. Another thing is that the game runs amazingly well. You know that stutter you get when you play Stalker, that micro freeze every few seconds? Yeah, well, I've rarely had that with this mod, even while streaming. There are some small pauses when you enter a map because it's loading all the NPCs in, but it's like that for every mod. But somehow this mod makes it rare rather than common throughout the 20 hours or so I've played. And that's also on top of the mod looking beautiful. I've been running it near max settings and have never had a frame drop. And people with not great rigs either have remarked on how smooth the mod runs. It's always been something that's possible to improve the engine and make it run better. I feel so many other projects get too focused on adding their cool features to make their mod unique and the best, rather than focusing on making the mod run better. So many mods end up a bloated mess with worse performance than vanilla because of this. Dead Air fortunately does not. So the mod looks good, it runs well, and it plays well. I feel damage is a lot better than most mods as well. You deal more damage than vanilla, and you take more as well. There's no real bullet sponge enemies except for the strongest of mutants, but that's kind of a point. Bleed and radiation damage is also now lethal. Both will swiftly drop your health if you're not attentive. Although bleed works well against enemies too for once. So far it's the only mod to make bleed and radiation threatening rather than a mere nuisance or completely overpowered. Mutants are faster and deadlier than ever. Stalkers are more patient and a lot smarter. I found myself getting flanked more often. Enemies choose to stay in cover rather than running into the open to just die. Controllers queue extremely quickly without sight protection, which while I find frustrating, it's also hard to argue against. There were some bugs with companion AI, but that's since been fixed. The mod has crashed a few times, but I feel their crash is common to Call of Chernobyl, the game crashing in between loading zones, physics bugs, and the other regular issues of a culprit. This mod hasn't introduced any new bugs or crashes from what I've experienced. On top of using the STCOP weapon pack, there's a variety of melee weapons to use. And not just some different fancy looking knives, but sledgehammers, axes, shovels and crowbars, and these have real weight and damage behind them. You can quickly take out people and mutants with these weapons if you ran out of ammo or just for fun. There's 5 kinds of knives, where the main difference other than looks is the ability to harvest from stronger mutants. And while knives pale in comparison to an axe, this mod has added a hotkey for a quick knife attack. It's a nice thought, because if you're in a situation where you need to swap to your knife, you're probably already dead. So when you're out of ammo or are getting swarmed by rats, you can conveniently swipe away at them, and even the AI will melee with their knives now, rather than just flailing their arms and punching you into another dimension like they used to. Stealth is completely reworked in this mod. It actually works. You can sneak past NPCs in this mod, rather than just having this fear of omnipresence where they could detect you through walls and bushes if you're within a certain distance. Instead, stealth relies on darkness, line of sight, weather, weight and sound, how it was meant to be. And this is demonstrated well at the start of a game, where you're required to sneak into the Cordon Army checkpoint. The inventory system is reworked too. You can stack usable items to make it more organised. Both artifacts and ammo need to be on your belt to be used, which requires an outfit. Although you can still manually load your guns by dragging and dropping rounds into them. Equipment is also reworked. You now have 3 weapon slots, 2 primary and 1 handgun. Larger melee weapons take up a primary slot. You also have a slot for grenades, knives, handhelds such as detectors or light sources, as well as a backpack slot. This mod really went above and beyond in terms of the light sources you can use. You can pick between a flashlight, a Zippo lighter and a chem light. The flashlight and chem light even light up the surrounding area when dropped. There's a lot of stuff you can place on the floor, lights, a stove, a sleeping bag, and even a tent. Pretty sure you could do most of this in Call of Misery, but it's always nice to be able to set up a comfy camp in Stalker. Backpacks in the mod are crucial. Without one you won't be able to carry even 10 kilos. There's a variety of them, from a basic one to a hunter's kit which yields more from animals, to a larger backpack to an exoskeleton which serves a similar purpose. The slot is also where you equip your oxygen tank, meaning you have to travel light in toxic areas. There's crafting in the game, although you can survive without it. I felt it was an excellent choice to craft most things through the free toolkits that mechanics need, so you must decide between making useful gear against upgrading your guns, at least until you find multiple copies. There's also a medicine kit where you can improve your regular medkit to army and scientific, as well as stim packs. Hunting is a profitable venture for mutant parts, and the meat is useful considering non-irradiated food is relatively expensive and not always available. I like that crafting and hunting is optional as well as optimal to use, but not necessary to have fun in the game. A lot of mods try to force these mechanics on you. You can learn of stash locations from journals you find, and learn of anomalous areas from military maps. The funniest thing from a mod is booby-trapped stashes. 20 hours in and it can still catch me off guard. If you find a stash with someone else's loot, being too slow can result in you getting blown away. Dead Air also balances weapon repair. You can no longer disassemble weapons for parts with a crowbar, since that made repair and money making way too easy in my opinion. Although there's still repair kits and junk to repair with, as well as mechanics everywhere. There's all the Call of Chernobyl maps, pretty much the same, although some maps have different placement of NPCs. Graphically, they'll look different too. In terms of factions, you could be on good terms with everyone except Monolith. Bandits start as neutral and you can decide to be allies or enemies early on. Mercs and military are shoot on sight until you purchase their permits, where you can turn them into allies through doing their missions. On the surface, you might think the mod is just a more difficult Call of Chernobyl or a bit better Call of Misery, but hopefully from the many small features I've gone over, I hope it exemplifies why I consider this mod so refreshing. It's balanced, it runs well, it looks good, it made Stalker fun and interesting for me to play again. I had to play carefully, conserve resources, plan on what I wanted to buy and what I needed. In a way, it reminded me of when I first played Stalker all those years ago. It's an extremely atmospheric and challenging experience. There were genuinely scary moments, tense battles, and the feeling of satisfaction upon reaching a new location and getting new gear was amazing. If you think Call of Chernobyl is good, I think it's fair to say that Dead Air gets even closer to perfecting the free play stalking experience that it popularized all those years ago. So if what I said interested you, be sure to check out the mod DB for Dead Air to find out when it's released. I've also streamed the mod a fair bit, so you might catch me streaming it some more on my Twitch channel. I'll be back with some more mod spotlights, as well as other videos of me talking about video game stuff. So subscribe if you're interested for more. I hope you enjoyed and have a good day.